How would you structure a program to reach 100 push-ups in a single set? Boy, that's an interesting question, because that was the test we had to do in high school. And I remember Barry Mamini and I both doing it. There was a couple of simple answers. We used to talk about this all the time in high school because it was a big deal when I was in high school. Doing 100 push-ups in an extended set was a big deal. I now have a whole bunch of parameters I put around push-ups, like, we now do them when you bring your chest to the ground, you put your hands off into a T, put your hands back on the ground, push up, and that's one. Just because people cheated so much on push-ups. But what we discovered is that doing sets of 100 is probably a test day thing. What we did, and I learned this from Tony Martin, is what we did was more like sets. Now, okay, let's just pretend for a second. You got to be able to do at least 25 push-ups before we can even have the conversation about getting to 100. It's like you got to run a 5K before I'm going to have a conversation about a marathon. You got to run a 10K before I'm going to have a conversation with a marathon. You just need some time doing the push-up. We did variations of push-ups all the time. Honestly, the one I think was best, and now I call it crocodile push-ups. This is a great variation to get your push-up numbers up. But when I say tick, you do a push-up. So tick. And then talk, you move a hand. So tick, one push-up. Talk. Tick. Talk. Tick. Talk. Tick. Now, my feet are coming up underneath me. So it's like doing a planked bear crawl, where every time you move your hand, you do a push-up. And what's nice about that is that instead of just doing push-ups with your hands in the one spot, is you get a great amount of movement. Now, it's easier for me to coach it than to explain it. It's one of those kinds of things. But every time I say tick, you do a push-up. Every time I say talk, you do you move a hand. It doesn't matter how you do it right, though. It doesn't matter. And they're called tick-tock push-ups and crocodiles. And a lot of people don't get the joke, but that's a Peter Pan joke, okay? Tick-tock push-ups are a great way to get a lot of volume and even some health. Now, one small thing, make sure you hang before and after these workouts just to get those shoulders feeling good again. Well, with Tony Martin, we would do these things where I go, you go, with 20 to 25 push-ups, and we try to get our volume up. But it needs to be that. So the 100 push-ups is much more like a 10K than a max bench press, if you follow. There's a lot of local muscular endurance you need to have. So I would say the best way you can do it is, one, have a friend who's just as crazy as you are, and go, I go, you go. You could probably work it out pretty simply into some system like, we're to do sets of 5 today. I go, you do 5, I do 5, you do 5, I do 5, you do 5, I do 5. And just really try to get up and keep count somehow how you do that. Wait a day or 2 or 3, pardon me, and maybe do that with 10s. I go, you go, I go, you go for 10s. And then build up to the point that you're probably getting the sets of 20 or sets of 25. Yeah, I don't know if it matters, but you want to make sure you get around 200 reps on those. So if you're doing 20s, for example, that would be, you're going to be doing 10 rounds of I go, you go. And it's interesting. Do you notice how tight those, so your partner's push-ups is your rest period. So I'm doing 20. I don't know how long that takes, but somewhere between 20 seconds would be fast. But let's say 40 seconds to a minute would be reasonable, though it can be a lot shorter than that, obviously. So my rest period is quite narrow. And so I'm barely even dealing with the waste products as we go. And that's one of the things you have to do. What we noticed when we did the test for PE class, physical education class, everybody can get to around 60, but to go from 60 to 80, we said this fun thing after, we try to take your elbows and put them together, and you just cramp everywhere. It's kind of a funny thing to do, your friends. But to get to 100, you have to get yourself, and when you do a practice run, just pop to the floor maybe every 3 weeks and just see what you can do. You'll notice that you're probably, no matter what you do, you're good for 20 to 50 reps if you've been training this, and you can do, those higher volume days of say 200 push-ups. You'll probably get to 50, and then what you'll notice is probably from reps 50, literally 51 to 60, you'll notice that the stress and the strain really adds up, and you need to practice powering your way through that. We weren't allowed to lay down, but we were allowed to rest by getting in the push-up position and taking a hand off. What we discovered is that resting with the one hand on the ground actually just took reps away from us. It was much better rest here so that we didn't put all the pressure on one side. Rest here and just power through. What you're going to find probably the first time, you're probably getting into the 80s before a really weird kind of failure hits you. And then once you've done that once, maybe twice, and you know what you're looking for, you'll be able to get to those 100. I've had a lot of high school athletes do the 100 push-up challenge. We had a couple of challenges along those lines. And very, very rarely after one person did not a whole bunch more people do it. So one of the things is important on this is just a human nature thing. When I see you do the 100, I might even be able to do 110 or 120 after seeing you do 100. And that just seems to be the way they always say it's about Roger Bannister in the 4-minute mile. Once he did it, all of a sudden everybody broke it, which isn't necessarily true. It's not actually what happened. But once you go through that, once you see someone do that test, it becomes a lot more believable. And you also, even if you don't consciously know, you're actually watching the mistakes they're making and you're fixing up the small things in your head. It's fun to do it, and good luck to you on that, okay? Thank you.